Talk, 760 WJR. Here's Tom Jordan and Kevin Deitz.
Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin apparently has a new yet very temporary residence in her new district in which she is running, and she's renting it from a successful executive, a donor to her campaign, to whom Slotkin's policy decisions have reportedly benefited. That's according to the Detroit News, which writes that Slotkin's 7-month lease of this new residence in Lansing expires right after the upcoming election. It's the same month, in November. There's nothing, to my knowledge, illegal here, Kevin. It's just, I think, another example, though, of how optics really plays such a huge role in winning over voters in these political races, that not everything on the surface is exactly how things appear to be.
Yeah, the idea of having political districts, Tom, is so that people are represented by their neighbors who know and share similar concerns. The reality is when districts shift, politicians suddenly move so that they can run in a district they think they can win. Some move in permanently. Others rent to qualify to run and then see how the election goes before deciding whether to move in full-time or not. In Alyssa Slotkin's case, she rented until right after the election and rented, like you said, from a donor to her campaign. Not against the rules, but it raises eyebrows. Joining us now is Dave Dulio, Director of the Center for Civic Engagement and Political Science Professor at Oakland University. Good morning, Dave. How are you?
I'm well, guys. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
How common is it for people to jump into another district after they're redrawn, and does it really matter to voters when they do this?
Well, you know, we see these issues pop up from time to time, even in election cycles where redistricting isn't such a big factor. I think the fact that the lines are redrawn and folks are sort of reshuffled in where they're going to run for office highlights this. But we see issues of residency come up almost every election cycle. And in fact, a couple cycles back, there were questions about both candidates in, I think it was Michigan's first congressional district, and whether they actually lived there or not. I think, so it happens, it's out there, but it really isn't a big issue in terms of the law, right? Because as you guys know, the Michigan has a rule that says you don't have to live in the district where you want to run.
What about renting from a donor, someone who may have benefited from Alyssa Slotkin's maneuvers as a congresswoman?
I think this is the bigger issue, right? And you guys mentioned optics at the start, and that's really what this is all about. It's perception, right? And it's one thing to say live outside of the district where you're going to run in an election cycle when the lines have been redrawn. It's another thing to temporarily go into the district and rent someplace to appear as if you have more ties to the district maybe than you actually do. Although that's not a real issue here for Congresswoman Slotkin either, because she's represented so much of the new district with her current district, right? So I think this whole thing is a huge unforced error on the part of the Slotkin campaign. It's something that is going to get them off message. It has gotten them off message, and it's something that's going to be a distraction for the next several weeks.
Yeah, I think that, one of the issues is not that they're living together. That's been the, I think, takeaway for some people. They're not living together. We know that. But it's the coziness of this relationship in another way. It's Slotkin apparently signing a letter advocating for a program that gave $28 million to this guy's company, grants in 2019 and 2021 while she was in office. And he's her landlord now. And then only a week after the election, she's gonna get out of there. So it's not illegal, but is it indicative, do you think, of some quid pro quo, or maybe at least a conflict of interest?
I have no idea on the quid pro quo. I think, let's go back to perception and optics. I think that's where the real problem lies, right? And it's one thing that it's a donor to her campaign. It's another thing that it's somebody who is in the field of government relations. Some folks want to call this person a lobbyist. They're not registered as a lobbyist, but government relations is lobbying, right? It's all this mess And it really, again, distracts from the issues that Congresswoman Slotkin wants to focus on. I think it gets to what a lot of Americans are uncomfortable about with politics, right? Where they look at it and they say, well, are you kidding me, right? Here's somebody who's representing me, and she's living in a place owned by a lobbyist. Now she is paying fair market rent, right? She's paying rent to this person. It's not like it's for free, but the appearance of potential ethical problems, I think, is what the biggest issue is.
I don't understand this, because Michigan is unique in this, and you touched on this, but that we do not require our congressional candidates to live within the districts in which they are running in. Her home right now in Hawley is not now within the districts that she wants to serve in. Why doesn't Michigan require that? Because isn't that the point of these congressional candidates and our elected representatives, to represent the people in which they live and their neighbors are?
I don't know the root of that law, but it sure would make sense, right? If you had to live in the district where you were running. Although I do think that if that were the case in election cycles like this, you would see a lot more of this kind of scenario, right? Not necessarily with the particulars, but you'd have somebody who has a permanent home in one community, and then probably looking to establish residency in another, even if just for temporary status. But I think that's something that you might see the state legislature look into at some point.
You talk about unforced error. Did the Barrett campaign make an unforced error by pushing this issue or insinuating that these two may be living together? The guy who owns the condo uses the address as his voting address, and Alyssa Slotkin uses that address as her voting address. And the Barrett campaign seemed to imply that, who knows, maybe they're living together. Slotkin, of course, is married, and she came out very strong against this, saying, me and my husband have some things to say about this implication. It almost makes you feel bad for Slotkin, as if she's been victimized by Barrett, who is insinuating something much too far, where if he had just stayed on the issue of, look, is she even from this district? Is she too cozy with this lobbyist? Is that an error by pushing that too far?
I think it probably is. It's another unforced error. What additional benefit does the Barrett campaign get from making that insinuation above and beyond what is likely to be a pretty strong criticism of the Congresswoman with just the rental agreement and who the rental agreement is with? I think that taking it that extra step in some ways probably provides diminishing returns.
Yeah, if he had just focused on the fact that they both are registered to vote at the same place, that in and of itself should give people reasons to ask a lot of questions. That's not your real residence, but you're registered to vote there. Why are you doing this? Is this purely political? And then you can discuss it on that level. We appreciate your perspective, as always. Dave Dulio, professor at Oakland University. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
You too. Thanks. 760.